Okay, let's take a look at question number 8. We want to find the square root of 6x plus 7 minus 2x equals 3. The question in particular says solve the equation. For each equation, find the sum of the solutions. Okay, so the key with square roots is you want to get them by themselves. So you'll see here I'm adding 2x to both sides so that I get the square root by itself. And then if I want to get the get rid of the square root, I'll take the square root of both sides. You got to remember when you take the square root on the right side, it becomes a quantity. It's a quantity, so you square the quantity. So this becomes 6x plus 7 equals 2x plus 3 times 2x plus 3. We're going to FOIL out the right hand side. That gives me 4x squared plus 6x plus 6x plus 9, and on the other side we got 6x plus 7. Keep this going. We're going to combine like terms. We got 6x and 6x, so this is going to give me 6x plus 7 equals 4x squared plus 12x plus 9. We're going to combine like terms, so I'm going to subtract 6x and I'm going to subtract 7. And when I say combine like terms, I do want to consolidate my terms, but I also want it such that an equation is equal to 0. Remember, anytime you have a trinomial, trinomial is just a fancy way of saying you have 3 different terms. What you always want to end up doing is you want to strive for getting the equation equal to 0, because then we can use various factoring methods to solve for it. First thing also I want to do here before I start trying to factor it is I'm going to divide through by 2, because each term is divisible by 2. So I'm arriving here. The next step is to factor. So this one should be fairly easy to factor. The back has to be 1 and 1, and the front has to be 2 and 2. Since they're positive, it's going to work. It's got to be like so. And that does end up working out. Note in the middle you get 2x and 1x, which is 3x. So I'm going to set each part equal to 0 and solve. So subtract 1, divide by 2, and x is negative 1/2. On the other side, subtract 1, and x is equal to negative 1. So these are our 2 answers. Or are they? Remember, you have to go back to the original problem, and you have to substitute them back in to make sure that it actually works out correct. So my solutions are negative 1/2. Let's plug in negative 1/2 here. So if I get negative 1/2 there, I'm going to get negative 3 plus 7, which is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. 2, remember we're plugging in negative 1/2. So negative 2 times negative 1/2 is going to give me 1. So I'm going to end up getting 2 plus 1, which is 3. So that one works. The next one is negative 1. So if I plug in negative 1 here, we'll do it in a different color. If I plug negative 1 here, I will end up getting square root of 1, which is 1. If I plug negative 1 here, I get positive 2. So again, I'm left with 1 plus 2, which is 3. So they both end up working out. I think the question says, what is the sum of the solutions? So negative 1/2 minus 1 is negative 1 and 1/2, or negative 3/2. If you're not familiar with this method, all I did is I multiplied the bottom one by 2 and then added 1, and that gave me the negative 3. In any case, the answer is negative 3/2. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's move on to the next one. Next one's a little bit tougher. What you want to do here is you want to try to get at least one square root by itself. So I'm going to add square root of x minus 2 to both sides. And I'm going to get square root 2x plus 3 equals 2 plus square root x minus 2. And then you're going to square both sides to get rid of the square root. But just like in the previous problem, when you take the square root on the right-hand side, just like on this one, this became a quantity. On this problem, the 2 plus square root x minus 2 squared becomes a quantity. So this breaks down to, and we're going to FOIL this out, so we end up getting 4. This becomes plus 2 square root x minus 2. The bottom one becomes plus 2 square root x minus 2. And the last part becomes square root of the square root, which is just x minus 2. So let me rewrite this with a little more space. So this becomes 2x plus 3 equals 4 plus 2 square root x minus 2 plus 2 square root x minus 2 plus x minus 2. I was running out of space there. Okay. Some of y'all may be looking at this and wondering why is he doing this right here? There's a rule that says we can, if you square this, and then do the product of these times 2, it gives you the same answer. And I'm aware of that, but I'm writing it all out, just trying to be as clear as possible. But if you prefer that, if you're used to that, then go ahead and do that. Okay, on this step here, I just put these two together. Now, I can also put the 4 and the negative 2 together, so that's going to be my next move. I'm just combining like terms. You can do it all in one step. So I guess I'll write 4 square root x minus 2 plus x plus 2. Alright. Next up, I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to get the square root by itself, so I'm going to subtract x and subtract 2 from both sides. And I'm going to get x plus 1 equals 4 square root x minus 2. And here comes an interesting step. I have some options here of what to do. What I do is, if I can divide by 4, if I could divide by 4, and that would cancel out terms here, I would divide by 4. But because it really doesn't do anything, I'm not going to divide by 4 here. I'm going to leave 4 on the other side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to square it. So just like we did in the beginning, when we squared it, I'm going to square it again. So essentially in these situations, when you start off with 2 square roots, right? You square 1, you get rid of 1, and then when you get down here, you do it again. So the left-hand side is going to break down. Now, I'm going to mimic, instead of doing it like this, I'm going to do the shortcut way, which is that I said you can square the first one, square the back one. In the middle is the product of the 2 times 2. So x times 1 is 1x, times 2 is 2x. That's always true. When you square like this, you have to square both, so it's 16 times the quantity x minus 2. And then we just keep cleaning up. So we distribute, so it's 16x minus 32. Again, I have a trinomial, so the goal with the trinomial is to get everything on one side. Subtract 16x, add 32 to both sides. Minus 14x plus 33 equals 0. And I'm going to attempt to factor this. I don't know if I can, but I'm going to try. Let's try. I see 33. I'm going to have to try 11 and 3. And I see that 11 plus 3 is 14. So if I make these both negative, it works out. So x minus 11 is equal to 0. X minus 3 is equal to 0. And finishing it off, x equals 11 and x equals 3. Remember, you're not done. You got to take these answer choices and plug them back in. And so if I plug back into the original one, 11 here and 11 here, let me just do this on a separate. It's going to be crowded. So the original problem was square root 2x plus 3 minus square root x minus 2 equals 2. And I said I'm going to plug in 11 and 3. So plugging in 11, 2 times 11 plus 3 minus 11 minus 2. So this is 22 plus 3 is 25, so square root 25. Square root 9 equals 2, so this is 5 minus 3, which is 2. So 2 equals 2. Awesome. The other one I want to try is 3. So I redo the whole process again with 3. You know what? Let me just rewrite the whole thing again. So what is it? Square root 2x plus 3 minus square root x minus 2 equals 2. I'm going to substitute in 3. So this becomes square root 2 times 3 plus 3 minus 3 minus 2 equals 2. So this is square root 9 minus square root 1 is equal to 2. This gives me 3 minus 1 equals 2, so 2 equals 2. And that's true as well. So both of them end up working. So our answers are going to be 11 and 3. Now I think, it says we're adding it. It's been so long since I did the last one, I forgot what the rules were. So we add them together, because it's saying, what's the sum of the solutions? 11 plus 3 is 14. So hopefully that makes sense, and I'll see you all in the next video.